So I've asked plenty of questions. I think it's now time to hand over to you. So first I'm going to get some questions from the audience. If I can ask you to put your hand up, we've got a couple of roving microphones. I see a gentleman already at the back there, and I'll go down to this lady here at the front. So this gentleman here, if you wouldn't mind quickly introducing yourself without turning it into a pitch. I know you've got a captive audience here, and just one question per person at the moment so we can get through. Over to you.
Hi guys, I'm George. Just a question about coping with the stresses of setting up your own business, the pressures. Most of you have set it up on your own, and I really wanted to find out how you switched off during the really tough times and managed to cope without all the stresses and pressures, particularly with emails coming in all times of nights and whatnot.
So anyone in particular? Anthony, you haven't spoken for a while,
Sure.
but the pressures and the stress. Remember your mum and dad are in the room.
Yeah. It was extremely difficult. I burnt out easily 3 or 4 times in those first few years. I was very bad at switching off. I'm sure my social life was impacted. I know my love life at the time was. So I was awful. But I guess looking back, what would I do differently? Definitely, I would definitely start my next business with someone. Doing it on your own, you don't get the opportunity to share all the highs with someone, going out for a drink and celebrating, but also someone to, give you a hug when you've missed out on a really key deal or something else has gone wrong. So I'd definitely start a business with someone else. And I think just, your friends, your family, they'll be there to support you. Confide in them, share your experiences with them. They won't find it boring. It's very common. As an entrepreneur, your life is, to be honest, probably more exciting than most of your friends. And they will nearly always be interested in hearing your stories, your ups, your downs. Confide in them. If they're friends, if they're true friends and family, they will be happy to listen and give you advice or a hug or something similar. And I don't think I did that enough, but definitely if I was looking back and giving advice to my younger self, that would be it.
And give everybody a hug tonight, Anthony. There you go. Together. In terms of the partnership, that's interesting actually, because that can go one of two ways. You can find somebody to work with who sort of shares the same passion, the dream, different skill sets, and it works beautifully well. Or it can be a real drag on your time, resources, and you're thinking, why did I go into partnership with people? And I've done a mixed approach. And in fact, I'm still working with someone I set up a partnership with, but they didn't want to put the investment in, whereas I wanted to take the business in a different way. And when we reached that agreement to go separate ways in terms of how the limited company was set up, but still work together, it was a real relief all round. So do you hold by that you would really want to go into business with somebody else?
Yeah, absolutely. But when you're choosing that person, it's thankfully my wife isn't here, but it's probably as important in terms of who you're choosing as your partner for life. Like this business you could be doing for 10, 15, 20 years. And if you're getting involved with someone like that, you have to, it's funny to say, but you have to effectively date them. You go out for dinner, you go out for drinks, not necessarily getting them drunk, but you make sure you build that bond and trust, because without it, the business will be doomed to fail.
And Karen, I won't get everybody to comment on this particular one unless they've got anything particularly they want to add, but Karen, I know in the good old days, the media business, where that was a different life. I can imagine now it's the polar opposite of how you go about things. But
it's still like a party.
Still like a party, so
I'm in the right industry.
Just remind everybody what EMAP stood for.
Every meeting's a party.
Which was true at the time, yeah.
And those were in the heydays of FHM and Heat magazine launching. But,
yes.
But going back to the burnout and the stress point, I mean, a lot of entrepreneurs who have burnout, but I don't think I've met a successful entrepreneur who hasn't been obsessed. And therefore, I think resilience is the key thing I talk about, because you need to take it personally, or what's the point? But when you take it personally, when it goes wrong, it hurts. So I've got a personal reference point because I still have shit days. There are still periods when everything goes wrong. But for me, the reference point is no matter how bad my day gets, I think of a young girl maybe spending six hours that day collecting clean-ish water. It still might make her sick, but because of that, she doesn't go to school. And compared to that, I don't have to deal with anything really bad. Just need to get through it and keep going. I've just got better at booking holidays. and coming up, year 7, and I'm going, right, 1 holiday a year, I'm going to turn off my phone, ring my husband if it's a real emergency, and he'll get me. It takes a while to get there, to be able to turn off the phone.
And to be disciplined to do it. You're right, in the early days you don't do that. That's some really good ideas. Anybody else want to add anything to that one? Rob?
I think it is all about putting it into perspective, really, because life's short, there's lots to do, but if you're all consumed by work, then you're not going to benefit from the other joys in life. So for me, running was really useful. I was able to mull over a lot of the stresses and hassles I was experiencing work and still do through running and exercising. And now, as a father of a young family, just seeing the kids in the evening and the morning kind of really helps me put things in perspective. But one tip that I kind of came across earlier on, because you can't switch off at night sometimes, is just don't check emails after a certain time. So after 7 p.m, I will not look at my phone for emails.
And in fact, having a young family then, work becomes a holiday, doesn't it? In fact, the real hard work is at home. Speaking from experience there. Has that given you some ideas, I hope? Some useful ideas? A thumbs up? Yep, lovely. Lady here I said I would go to next. So do we just have the one microphone at the moment? There we go. So if you'd like to keep your hand up so we know where the microphone is going to. That's great. Thank you very much.
Hi all. Thank you very much for the talk. It's been really inspirational. This question is actually directed to Polly. Hi, Polly. My name's Maria Alexandru. My company name is Alex Galley. And in fact, when I heard what you do, I nearly jumped off my seat. And that's only because my brand is about doing luxury outfits for women who are professionals. It doesn't have to be necessarily business women, but I live in the City of London and I'm quite inspired by the women who are in the City of London. But the difference would be that I'm not minimalist. So I'm more bringing colour to your day, making outfits that are more signature prints. If you've ever heard of Diane von Furstenberg, then you'll know what I mean. So basically, you and her inspire me very, very much. And what I found difficult is actually, I want to create samples that I would do a pre-sale to test my collection before going into that all-important investment, because I come from a background where I really don't have anything to invest, really. So I want to know that I'm going down the right route. Where would I go, would you suggest, to test? Because you did say that you approached women to research, and I really want to do that. How would you suggest that for a person like myself?
So I think the testing idea is an excellent one, because we definitely did that, and we did that with as little as we possibly could. And I think that whole kind of idea of doing the minimum you can to get any feedback is really a good idea, because we learned a lot from it. There are a lot of resources that the British Fashion Council have, and they didn't necessarily have all of them when we were starting, but I know that they do have a lot now. So they have I think they have a kind of incubator program. They have quite a lot of ways to support young designers or new businesses. So sort of in a similar way to the British Library, I think there are a lot of resources, and in that industry, that would be a good place to start. And I think doing the absolute minimum that you can. And then I think it's just about, for example, doing a little event, or what we did was we just invited pretty much like everyone that we knew to basically to a party, and we said, come along and see if you like anything. And then we actually took some orders. So we said, if anybody likes anything, maybe we can make a sale. And it was that really important moment to see not just whether somebody said, oh, I like it. It's very different saying, I like it, to I'm going to buy it. So we actually gave them the opportunity to buy off a set of samples. And we only had one size, and we had like one small rail with a very small selection. But it was very reassuring that some people actually were willing that night to like hand over their credit card and buy a dress. And I think that gave us the confidence to, a little bit of money to actually make the product that they were ordering, but they knew that, so it's okay, we hadn't misled them on that. And then we just found some like sampling studios or small factories around London to just make what they'd ordered. But that was the beginning of it, and I guess it's scrappy, and it's not glamorous, and I had rails of stuff in my house, and you've got stuff in the back of the car, and it's midnight, and you're trekking it around, and you're seeing if anyone will, it's literally just hauling it in and out of a car to see if someone's going to buy something. And it was easily the stressful, humble experience. But scrapping, there's nothing wrong with it, because if people give you the right steer that they want to buy it, then at least then you know that you're onto something. And I think it's a good idea to do that before you go down any path of investing a lot of money. If you can make it yourself, if you can get someone to help you, if you can use those resources, do it as cheaply as you possibly can.
Could you also go to some local FE colleges? Because I know when I've ever put events together, when I did my book launch, I got the University of West London, I got the students, film students to put the video. I actually gave them some money as well, because I thought they deserved it, but it was not at a commercial rate, but it was a great way of them getting work experience. Is that something that potentially you could go to, maybe get some college students to see it as a project? Is that?
Yeah, I think it's definitely worth a shot. I think any idea like that, it's about being creative with those ideas. So the University of the Arts, London, will have a lot of boards and postings where you can just, see if there's anyone who wants to volunteer for something. And maybe they just want, to help their portfolio, or maybe there's a photographer who wants to take some pictures for their portfolio, anything like that. So I think it's just, it's scrapping and not being afraid to do that. And we've all definitely done it. And I'm not I'm not ashamed to say that. I think that's where you just kind of have to start.
I think that's some great advice there. Right, very conscious. Hopefully that's given you some great advice. Claire, I know you've been looking at what the country and the world have been telling us. I can see the Twitter all going up and down all the time, and lots of comments. So what's caught your eye?
Well, there's been some questions so far. One asked during Anthony's opening speech that when he was talking about his staff lunchtimes, how has the panel in other ways overcome the loss of certain water cooler moments in today's work from home ethos? So how have you brought your teams together when some people are freelancing or working apart?
Yeah, actually, Charles, do you want to have a go at this one? Because just
I
conscious.
really do.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Well, the idea that people may want to work from home, but then bringing teams together can get the creativity and ideas, but also giving people the freedom. It's that balance. So how do you balance sort of
It's
making
tricky.
sure?
I mean, the vast majority of people are full-timers at Fevertree. We only have, it might surprise you, we only have 65 employees in the company, because a lot of it is outsourced. So all of our overseas work is outsourced. But in the UK, there are some part-timers, and it does tend to be mums who want the time at home in our office, and we're making it always work. I mean, there seems to be a great deal of commitment even from the people who are away, but overall 90% of the people are on the job the whole time, more 95%.
But is there a flexible ethos regardless of how many hours that you do, and has that brought the benefits as the world of work has changed? Or is it difficult to allow a certain amount of flexibility?
It's very un-PC to say. I mean, there are an awful lot of guys working an awful lot of time, and they seem to be really enjoying it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think there's just, I don't know. Not sure I'm the right person to answer that.
Yeah. Okay, Anthony.
Pass it around.
But let's pass it around so we get the right answer.
So we may have gone completely the opposite direction. So yes, we've got free lunches. Everyone loves it. Brings the team together. We also have what effectively is an infinite holiday policy. So we very much focus on output, not input. So everyone's given their targets as a team, but also as an individual, and we make sure that their managers make sure they deliver. If you are delivering and obviously exceeding your targets, then honestly, we don't mind if you take 20 days holiday or 40 days holiday, as long as we're getting what we expect out of you as a person. If you're just much more productive, then we want to empower you to make the best decision about how to utilize your time. If you want to come into work at 10 and leave at 6, or even leave at 4, if you are just super productive in that time, that's absolutely fine. And obviously you've got to be in for meetings, and as long as that doesn't let down your team. So if you do want to go on holiday, you do have to let your team know, your manager know, just so we can coordinate things properly. But what we found is by empowering all of our team to make the best use of their time, and there have been a few people who haven't liked that lack of structure, who really needed the rules and structure in place, and so we gave it to them. But it was very much their choice, or we realized they weren't coping without the structure, so we put that in place. But the majority of our team use it, like it, and I think it gets the best out of them. And they reward us for that.
So I know you've done a LinkedIn post. I think is it one of contract with one of the local councils?
Yeah, so Just Park we entered a new sector very recently, so I'm sure many of you have paid for parking on street before and had to download one of the apps that it says on the street sign. So we've entered that market in the last few months, obviously entering the wonderful world of public sector procurement. And we've just won Cornwall Council, which is I think the fourth or fifth.
So which led me to think actually, so when you're gearing up for that, you need all hands on deck. So how does that work?
So I wouldn't be correct. I wouldn't be. That's going live in about 2 or 3 weeks' time. We've had another big project go live, I think this week or next week. So at the moment, I wouldn't be surprised if we've still got 5, 6, 7 people in the office.
Let's call them. Let's check.
They'll probably love that, and I'm sure people are going to be working this weekend as well. But they know that there are going to be times where they have to work really hard, but they also know that if they're burning out or they really need time off, they're going to get that as well.
And you get the respect back both
absolutely.
ways. Karen, I know you're nodding.
Yeah, because all businesses have time when people need to step up, right? When you have those peaks. And then if you just revert back to business as usual, you don't have that recovery time, that downtime. But we've used flexible working as our hiring policy. So as a social enterprise, I want talent, right? But I can't compete. But I have managed to get ahead of operations ex-Amazon. My chief operating officer, she was director at Tesco's. You can do it if you approach it creatively. It's still hard. Needle in a haystack looking for the right people. I'm looking for the right values match, the right skills. They need to be good at the right thing. And I need to hopefully find them at the right life stage, because depending on how much rent or mortgage people have got to pay and how many kids they've got, there is a reality about what they need to earn. And so we've used that. It is hard. I don't want to use, for obvious reasons, the water cooler moment. Hadn't heard it called that before, and I love it. We have Team Tuesdays. So the reason we have massive flexibility is I ran Baloo living overseas for 2 years because I didn't think it was going to get very big, and it wouldn't be. So if I need flexibility, you've got to be fair, right? Everybody else has got to have it. That's how we ended up that way. And it's totally possible. Don't underestimate how much difference a face on a screen can make. So Skype for Business with film versus Skype for Business in the ear, it's just massively different.
You have to get your hair done though, if you're going to do that. Yeah.
But you know, and it needs to be okay that the dog runs past. It needs to be honest, So Skype for Business, OneNote, we're big lovers of OneNote. If anybody hasn't found OneNote yet, then do. It's a great way to and
what's so good about
tech to share it, because it's a shared notebook of everything in one place, and it's live, and you can use it on mobile devices as well as on your PCs or Macs. And it's just really worked for us because it's got history there, not just kind of current too. But it is hard, but I'm more effective at home than the exception to that is client meetings. I am more effective working from home than I am in the office. But I also want to innovate. You've got to find a way to have both.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Claire, I think that's answered that. Any other questions that caught your eye from maybe around the country?
Well, you did ask Rob when you were speaking to him. But another person, John, who's at the screening in Leeds Library, asked...
Hello, John. So let's all say, hello, John.
Hello, John.
In Leeds.
He asked, in hindsight, if you could do one thing differently on your business journey, what would it be?
Very good, yes. So what would you do differently? I know you had a go at that, Rob. Is there anything else that you want to throw into the mix?
Ask us first.
Go on then. Polly?
Actually, was it probably combined with the stress question on the raising money. Do it earlier and sooner than you think, because probably the most stressful moment I had was when, we were too close to the wire, and it was extremely stressful, and the most stressed I've ever been, and it's not pleasant. It's not pleasant for people around you, and it's really, really hard to cope with.
So when you say earlier and closer, would it have been feasible though in reality to do that? Could you have done that?
I think it. Knowing how long the runway needed to be would have been helpful. So, for example, instead of it being 6 months, actually probably a year, even more than that, of building those networks and really doing it proactively would probably have been a better move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Charles?
Probably the best example I can give of it's different again now. We're a bigger business, but when you're a small entrepreneurial business, you just have to get that business. I mean, you use the word scrapping, and I really identify with that. You just have to do what you have to do to get around and over that wall or around that fence or whatever it is that you've got to sort of do it. And I think I think we played by the rules a bit too much at the early stage, and actually one of the really big markets where we suffered badly as a result of that was Germany, where they have these recycling rules, and Tim and I decided to do it right, and we did not take our non-recyclable product from the UK to Germany, and there was a competitor that did, and the interesting thing was they established a footprint in that market that has taken us something like 6 years to get them out of that, because they did it the wrong way, but got ahead of us in that one market. And, that hurt. And you were thinking, that's so unfair. And I think maybe they did it right and maybe we did it wrong.
But you've got the moral high ground, surely.
Possibly.
You're gonna look smug.
Another one I wouldn't do is, I once decided that I was going to do a premium gin, and I decided I put a cork in it because that's what premium whiskey has too. And they promised me the corks were absolutely fine and wouldn't put any colour into there. And then I sent them across to America, and I arrived there in America. The guy said, "Are you sure this is supposed to look like urine, Charles?" That wasn't a great moment.
No, indeed, I can imagine, yeah. Let's get another question from the audience. There's a lady over there, so I'm getting the mics to work. We're going to have to pass them around. They're running now, the team from the British Library. So if you can just keep your hand up so we can see where you are. And just a reminder, the Twitter handle is @BIPC, and the hashtag, hopefully we're going to trend, hopefully we're monitoring this, is BIPC question time. Thank you very much. And if you could introduce yourself as well.
Hi, I'm Kelly from Drink Stuff. I'd like to ask you guys, what's the best mistake you've had?
The best mistake you've had. Come on, be honest. What's the best mistake you've had? Rob?
Best mistake. I don't know.
Has Karen got one?
I've got one.
She's got one. There you go. There you go.
Where do you think
the
you're
best one.
We'll give you. We'll come back to you.
So I'm going to talk about pricing. I'm going to talk about contracts. Really important. So you have a really good negotiation, right? Really nice people. They seem really nice, like you are. You come to an agreement. You've based your pricing on the volume of business you're doing and the term. You agree the price. They take the price. They trade with you a bit, and then they just stop it because you were pretty daft and you didn't follow it up with a signed contract, which in the moment they probably would have signed. So the importance of contracts, I learned that early on in a big way.
And written, not verbal.
Proper written contracts, because you can be think about cash flow. You can produce a shed load of stuff and then be ending up sitting on it and paying storage to sit on stuff you thought you'd sold. So yeah, linking pricing to the actual amount of business and contracting it, the single most important lesson that I learned along the way.
Otherwise, you learn the hard lesson, don't
Yeah.
you? So absolutely.
And it could take you under,
Yeah.
If cash flow's limited, you could be gone.
Yeah, written agreements are incredibly important. Rob, have you distilled your one? Or are there several brewing?
There's just so many. I can't choose the best one.
Go on then.
But I don't know. You've got to be flexible and change your mindset, and what you think's right sometimes might not be right in the long run. So, launching the business, I was really anti-licensing because the children's luggage market was just licensed crap product with no innovation. So I didn't want to put licensing on the trunkies. And then a couple of years later, our demographics very ABC1, so we didn't want to go down the Disney route or all those, although they were queued up at the doors. And then the Gruffalo became Radio 2's most favourite children's book. They were going to do a really nice animation at Christmas, just a couple of years back. And one of the marketing girls just kept badgering me about it. And I was like, no, I don't want to do any licensing yet. It's just about our brand. But eventually, there were so many good reasons to investigate it with the potential of the marketing that I thought, well, let's have a go. We got the design team to mock a few up. And the Gruffalo has been our third bestseller over the last 7 years.
Wow. Yeah, that's it. Anybody else? Best mistake? Polly? Surely.
Yeah.
Perfect, aren't you?
Oh, yeah, very perfect. Yeah, with the legs swimming underneath the table that you can't see, so it's all right. Probably it was actually the business model at the beginning. We did all of that scrapping and all of that, putting the stuff in the car and heaving it around and trying to make sales one by one. And actually it was so hard. And we were making sales, but it was like inch by inch by inch. And in terms of the mistake side of that, I think the change was recognizing that if we were going to grow, something really big needed to change. So for me, that was actually recognizing that was going to be very tough to scale with. and then going and meeting some people. So I actually went and met with people like Nick Wheeler, for example.
Okay.
And I just knocked on a lot of doors, and some people, you know, they were really generous with their time, give you the advice, and then you can change. So I think it's recognising when something's not working.
And Nick Wheeler's from Charles Tyrwhitt Shirts, who's married to Chrissy from the White Company.
Yeah.
What a dream team that is, eh?
And catalogues. They voila, catalogues.
Yes.
So, you know, you can learn so much. So go and knock on the doors if you think something's not working, and find out what can.
Okay. Another question from around the country. Have you found anything, Claire?
Let's have a look at the top. So,
Okay.
Diane in Poole has said, when you started out, what did you live on before you started making sales? Were you still at work?
Oh yes. So how did you get by? What was the funding regime? So Charles, when you started out.
I mean, the first one was the first disastrous thing I got into was I was just I'd given up quite a reasonable job, but I hadn't saved a great deal, and I still had a mortgage, and so it was very hand to mouth. With Plymouth, when there was a small salary, I was joining a team who had invested a small amount of money into this thing. After that, of course, it gets easier. After I'd sold Plymouth, it made it a lot easier, because then I had two things. I had a little bit of cash that I could put in for seed capital into Fevertree myself, but I also had the track record, which made it very easy for me to go and get the private equity, which was the business you were in. It's a bit of a catch-22, that one. You can't get the money until you've got the experience, and you can't get the experience until you've got the money. So I think every entrepreneur recognises that. But
So was it a frugal time? Were you, obviously I'm not promoting credit cards, but was it the 0% credit card era that you could make the most of?
No, I'm not going to give you by anything like the best experience of that. I know a lot of entrepreneurs are like that. What we managed to do, the cash flow really wasn't that bad for us. We managed to get for them supermarkets, amazingly, a lot of money very soon, always paid on time. And we did talk about factoring, but it didn't put us under personal pressure. There was some personal guarantees given by some of the other shareholders. That was one of the things I sort of begged from the guys who had money on the Plymouth team. I didn't have it, but the other three had money, and they put up some personal guarantees. There's usually a way to get by.
And Anthony is a one-man band. How did you manage to sort of make everything work for you, leaving a professional services, which I'd imagine would have been a good salary, to starting off with nothing? I don't know your own personal circumstances, but I'd imagine you had to budget.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was 23 years old at the time. I was still living with my folks, so I had no dependents. So I didn't need a lot of money. I did have some savings. I ran a small little business at university, which was still ticking over and making me maybe £1,000 a month, something similar. So that was enough to live off. I did get into credit card debt, not humongous amounts, and yes, I did enjoy the 0% for a while. But after, I think, the third or fourth year, where when I was very close to giving up, and I think I probably did give up a couple of times during that journey, I did some consulting for a web design agency. So I worked there 2 or 3 days a week, and then worked on Just Park for 3 or 4 days a week, because I needed an income. I wanted to have a life. I wanted a social life. I wanted to go out, enjoy nice food. And so that's what I did. So I did take a sort of part-time job in that.
Did that have an impact, though, on the current business, though?
Absolutely. We didn't grow that quickly, but it was just myself. I still didn't have the confidence that this was going to be a big business and a big opportunity. I knew I was onto something, but it just wasn't growing like I wanted it to. I didn't have the funding behind me. I didn't, I guess, have the conviction that it was going to be something big, and I'd come across something exciting. And so I was basically hedging. I was like, you know what, I want to keep this going, but I also need cash. And so I kind of needed that BMW conversation to happen when I could get a bit of money in, and that gave me the confidence to go full time, and then obviously start hiring people. And
was the BMW thrown into the mix as well, or not?
Unfortunately not. I think they gave me a small discount, but it was just cash for the business and a
get the bus, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, fine. Karen.
I think it's really important that you plan for this properly, and as my husband would say, you've got to be prepared to put your own skin in the game. I mean, imagine somebody's looking at you, and they're asking you to invest in them. If you know they're putting not just their heart and soul, but their personal savings, you're much more inclined to back them. I do speak to quite a few young entrepreneurs who want to get the money and then want to get on with the plan. And my advice is always, can we focus on how it is you're going to pay this money back? So, you know, if you haven't planned going into this new venture, and as a part of that, your own financial stability, how excited and convinced am I going to be that you're going to have planned the venture itself?
Yeah, very good advice. I could take one last question from the floor. So there's just a lady up there. The speakers will be around afterwards, so you have an opportunity to ask your question now. You can hopefully catch them before they go off. So just this lady over here. Hello there.
Hello.
No pressure, the last question.
Oh, I know. Well, I'm Laura, by the way. About a year ago, I designed a kitchen utensil, which I've been working on. But it's the first thing I've ever designed. I've not done anything like this before. And although it's a very unique and unusual solution, it's quite a simple design. And I know that I need a lot of help and support in lots of different areas on how to get it off the ground. But I'm a bit wary of who I speak to, just because I am very aware that it is a very simple design. That would people steal it? Like, if because
Yeah. Possibly.
That's what
I know it's when do you let go? It's that intellectual property, isn't it? So, I mean, I think this is Rob. Rob's can't be chomping at the bit.
Yeah. So, have you registered the design?
Well, no.
No.
I've not.
Is the design finished, or are you still developing it?
It is finished, yeah.
Right. So, registered the design. Very cheap to do UK design, but I'll go European design if it's finished. So at least you've got some IP. And when I licensed Trunky originally, I was licensing essentially my European design registration.
So you said you go to UK Design, did you say?
No, the UK IPO has a very cheap system, but I'd invest in the European registered design because it just covers you for the whole of Europe for 300 quid or something. And that's probably the only IP you're going to get other than a trademark. And then once you've registered that, you've got some IP that you could possibly license. So you could talk to one of the bigger firms to possibly license it. But if you have to help, the British Library Office has their things to support you. There's the Design Council Spark are running a great program for mentoring and funding. So look at that.
Yeah, you're back to that point actually. Have a look to see when the next intellectual property event is. I don't know off the top, but if you go onto the website, Claire, do you know that? Tomorrow, is it? No. Oh, all right, go. Thanks. I thought you knew everything.
I'll just quickly ask you, what does success look like for you? Is it getting your product on the shelf, or is it retiring as a billionaire?
Well, I would like to see my product on the shelf.
Yeah. So don't be too precious about it, and just use it as an experience to get your product on the shelf. I mean, you can't really beat that as a proudest moment and life achievement to have thought of a product, developed it, and got it on the shelf. Very, very few people actually achieve that and don't get too wound up with how am I going to make loads of money and retire on this.
Yeah.
Just focus on that goal of getting it on the shelf.
But
very pleased.
I definitely check out the BIPC website to see when the next intellectual property event is. There's lots of events, either very low cost, ranging from say like 15 to 35 to 40 pounds. Some events are free, so I don't know which your event that you want to go to, which category that fits into, but they're not exorbitant fees. I mean, when I run workshops here with the British Library, often people say, my God, it's so low cost. It's very, very achievable to attend, whether it's about social media, PR, intellectual property. So definitely do that, but do it soon.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you'll come back a year later and you'll still be giving the same advice, won't you, Rob? So has that helped?
Yeah, that's really
Brilliant. So you've made a note of that. So it's about 300 quid, the European Registry of Design, isn't it? Is that what it's called?
European Registered Design.
Registered Design, okay, fine. So good luck with that. So we're looking forward to seeing that. Or go on Dragon's Den. Yes.
Yeah, maybe.
Go on, don't be shy. We'll back you. So brilliant. Well, thank you very much indeed.